our Hollywood interview series. My name is Giovanna, I'm your host, and today I'm with a very exciting personality. His name is Conal, and I had to ask him for his last name pronunciation, but we're going to have fun. He's a TV producer and podcast producer. And hello, Conal, how are you today?
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me.
And how do you pronounce your last name?
Well, it's a strange Irish name. It's O'Herlihy.
Oh, mine. So, okay, so you are a TV producer and podcast producer. You also are the executive producer for the Hollywood Interview. How did your career started?
Well, I went to film school here in one of the universities in Los Angeles. Um, and that started it. Of course, it's hard to get into the biz, as you know. So like many people, I did everything I could. I worked in audio. I worked in art department. I worked in craft service, in catering, in production coordinating. I was a grip. I was an electrician. I was a cameraman. I was a DP. Um, as my father, who was a director as well, said, you have to study your craft. And, film and television is very complicated. There's many people who are involved in it. And I was lucky enough to get a lot of experience. And that helped me as I moved into a producing role. So I actually started off as a film editor. Right out of film school, I was hired to cut and edit a feature film. That's a low budget feature film, but video was coming in, but we were still able to cut on film. So on a flatbed with actual physical film, we cut that, and I went to Sundance Festival, and but they also needed somebody to do the sound editing, and Pro Tools had just come out. And so we had a Pro Tools system. So then I became a sound editor. And then I was a sound editor for a little while, doing dialogue cutting for a lot of feature films around town. And then I took a break from that because it was, it's very hard to get a job. And I worked for Universal Studios theme park for 10 years. And I ended up in the marketing division. So if there was ever a TV show or a movie or a commercial or a music video that filmed in the theme park or on the back lot, well, you had to come see me and our department. So we did the Rosie O'Donnell show.
You work at Universal Studios also running the stunts, right?
That was another thing I did, yes. I started off as a stage manager on the Miami Vice stunt show. And so we dealt with a lot of stunts, a lot of people, and a lot of shows every day. And then they put me in charge of what's still the longest running stunt action show in the world at a theme park, which is the Waterworld stunt show. I was very proud of that job. We worked very hard, and that show is going on today, 25 years later, and still the #1 ranked stunt show.
Congratulations.
Well, I'm proud of that. And there's still some people there who are still acting there and still is part of the crew. So
I think the adrenaline and the action never goes away. You are a producer and you have a lot of experience, such as in the camera department, directing, editing, like behind the scenes. And this is a very valuable information. But you also specialize in action and military with your docu-reality programming. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. I did, before that happened, I was actually doing a lot of game shows, and that was a lot of fun. And I worked with a great team. And then reality television came in, and reality television sometimes isn't real. It's not reality. And I wasn't happy with that. And I didn't feel that my work was valuable. And I made a decision to follow something and make documentaries, nonfiction programming about things that I loved. And I'm a big fan of the military and soldiers and airmen and Navy people and what the jobs they do. So I made a promise to myself to tell their story. And I was lucky enough.
How did you started to have interest into military and?
Well, it was really a sort of a hobby of my father's and myself. He gave it to me. And so we followed many things, especially the Navy. We were very much a seafaring, seagoing family. So we were very involved in that. I was actually nominated in high school to go to the military academy for the Navy in Annapolis. I wasn't fortunate enough to get in, but that love never left me. And I had always studied the military, observed the military all the way back to ancient Egypt. So
that would lead you to make the Recon Challenge show and the Showdown Combat?
well, working with the military, you have to gain their trust. And if they see producers and directors who admire them, who respect them, and are not out to make them look bad, they embrace you. And being embraced by the military is something that many people in Hollywood do not get. And I was one of them that did get it. And once they knew that we were the right type of people to tell their story, whenever we would approach the Hollywood branch of the military, they're in Westwood, there's an office right next to each other, and they would all get to know you. And they'd say, well, this is a good story over here. And we'd go and sell the show to Discovery or History Channel or Military Channel. And it became a sort of a sub niche or a subspecialty in television, working with the military. And I was lucky enough to become somebody trusted by the military to tell their story.
What I would like you tell me a little bit about your Showdown Air Combat. It looks like it's full of adrenaline, how they started. And it was the first high definition TV show at Discovery, right?
It was. They had played with it. High definition was coming in and around 2007, 2008. Television was transitioning to high definition. And what a better subject matter than to see real planes from World War I, World War II, and after that, Korea, demonstrating what happened in the air. And we actually had an actual Air Force pilot as our host, assigned by the Air Force. Colonel Max Moga, and he was the demonstration pilot for at the time, the new air superiority weapon for the United States Air Force, the F-22 Raptor. So he was our host. We put him in a plane, following the other planes in the air. Now, the thing about it is, that's very expensive. So you have to get those planes up in the air very quickly, on time, and have them up there for as little time as possible, but have them do what you need them to do.
I would like to ask you, how did you choose a talent? Because they are not actors. You are filming reality with the real people that they are actually their jobs. So because he was spectacular, the way that he was hosting the show about the airplanes. I mean, how did you make that, or who made that decision?
It was a decision made in combination between the Discovery Network and the U.S. Air Force. And it took over a year to decide on the person. Now, he was the official face of the F-22 fighter program when it came out. So he would travel around giving demonstrations about this new fantastic aircraft. But it took a while. So the Air Force, the U.S. military is very smart when it comes to the people that they put in front. So anybody who gets into the seat in the cockpit of one of our fighter pilots is a very smart person anyway. And they spend a lot of money training them. He happened to also get a lot of training in media from the Air Force. So it takes a long time. It's always worth it. They'll always give you somebody fantastic. And the U.S. military is very smart when it comes to the people they choose to represent them.
Well, I think that that's a very important aspect of the show. What are you working now?
Well, I have I was working a lot of shows, high adventure shows, high risk shows. As you know, I spent 2 years in Oklahoma doing a car racing show. Um, I did a show about crossbow people in Louisiana. I was in Georgia with a preppers show for quite a while. I got to travel a lot. But what happened was that my daughter was born, and I didn't want to spend her lifetime away. So I said, well, what can I do to stay at home and do something, what's the next level? And my real passion of mine has been radio, and the world of podcasting started. And I said, well, you know what? I'm a fine producer. I will open up a podcasting production company, and I will make the best podcasts that are on the air. And we just started in January with that. I was lucky enough to hook up with an old friend, Alex Simon, who has the fascinating blog, The Hollywood Interview, and we turned it into a podcast. And with the success of that, I've moved on, and I've picked a couple of, working with mostly TV producers, because, you know, it's sometimes they don't have a lot to do. So they have great ideas, and some of those great ideas should be podcasts. And so that's what we've been doing. If you see behind me, I've got a couple of signs for some of the podcasts that are in production, are coming out later this month. And one is a true crime one called Treasure Detective, where we're actually searching for real treasures and the stories of those treasures. And there isn't a podcast out there like that. And there's another one called Transform, which is about the challenges the transsexual community is having in this country, and it's underserved. People don't know anything about it. So I have a fantastic host and producer for that, and that's going to be coming out later this month as well.
Well, I think all our Hollywood audience will be very excited to know more about your coming projects. And I would like to know more about your No One Else Media company.
Well, that's what it is, just what it is. You know, just like all of media, the corporations start getting bigger and bigger, and the independent voice, the independent talent kind of gets lost in the mix. Well, my company is a small, what they call boutique production company, just like you've heard the term for a television company, a boutique production company. They do a couple of good, high quality stuff. Well, that's what we're doing. And so that's what No One Else Media is. And the reason why it's called No One Else is actually, it's a tribute to my wife, because we've been married for 21 years and there's no one else for me and there's no one else for her. So it's No One Else Media.
Title. Well, there is some message that you would like to share for upcoming producers. Right now, we have a wave of technological changes. And since to me that in your career, you have transitioned through those changes.
So what would I tell new producers and new filmmakers and actors and all those people? What would I say to them? I'd say, learn your craft. I would say exactly what my father said to me: learn your craft. The more you know the tools, the more you don't have to think about using them, and your real creativity will come out. Be nice. Don't. It's never that important. One of the things, you know, standing on a road in Oklahoma with a tornado coming down on you, and you've got 300 people who you're responsible for. Remember, you're responsible. Nothing's so important that somebody's life is, you know, it's just TV. Nobody's life is that important. So, but don't make that, you know, you're going to have to learn when to make that decision. And that's a thing where, listen, you know, call your boss. Call your boss. You'll never communicate enough with your boss, especially if you're in production, because they've probably got more experience than you do, and they'll think of something else. Because in the end, television and film, it's a collaborative mood. Don't think it's all on you. Ask those experts around you; they'll know, and they've seen it before. So it's you know, it's so much fun TV and film and communicating and creating, if you're the right type of person for that, it's the most fulfilling thing you'll ever do in your life.
At this moment, are you looking for a collaboration with other producers with your company, No One Else Media?
I am mostly involved in certain genres. So self-help and business development in order to help people is very important to me. History is very important to me. I have a slate. I mean, what you see behind me is just, what's actually happened so far. History is very important to me. I'm hoping to do a podcast on the history of all cities. So that will be, this, say you take the history of Veracruz. Well, that started a long, long time ago. And why? The history of Veracruz would probably take about 60 or 70 episodes of a podcast to tell the story properly. Well, if I do 25 cities, that's thousands and thousands of episodes, and I'm going to need a lot of people to help me. People who are interested in history, people who want to tell the stories of these fascinating places. True crime is a big thing. I am connected with the man who I think has solved the riddle of Jack the Ripper.
Oh, wow.
In London. So I'm trying to get that one made. We tried to make a television show of it several years ago. The interesting thing is that podcasts are an interesting way to test your theory and whether or not it's right for television. So there's an interesting crossover there.
I think the podcast also radio, like for me, I grew up with radio. Listening to the radio novelas at that time, like radio soap operas. So you really get to explore the characters. It's like when you're reading a book and you can create any characters that you want. But when you are watching the movie, it's a little bit different and then they're presenting you or with introducing you with a character they already cast. But in your mind, it's just wow of imagination.
You've hit on the most important thing about podcasting and audio entertainment, because it's the voice in your ear. Usually you've got earbuds on or you're hearing it. It's real 3D because the images created by the audio in your brain create the images. There's nothing better than that. It's not on a screen. It's not two-dimensional. It's in here. It's closer to you than seeing it. When you hear it, it's inside you already, and when you create it. So the voices you hear or the images that are created inside you are far more engaging than even a 3D or a motion picture. It's way more connected, and the science backs that up.
Would you be interested in creating something also for the children?
I am. I have two fabulous children, and we've been entertaining them for years. I for some reason I find that harder. I find that very much harder to do. I mean, I read to my kids every day, and we have the most extraordinary times reading the stories. I think there's a lot of people doing it too, and a lot of very talented people who are doing it. So yes, of course, I would be interested. I think it would probably take up too much of my time. I don't know.
Well, it's something, I guess, to explore, perhaps.
Sure.
But, Conal, has been a wonderful pleasure having this interview with you. How the audience for Horror Hollywood can find you? Can you provide some of your social media?
Well, we're on Facebook at The Hollywood Interview. And we are also on Twitter and Instagram at The Hollywood Interview. Any of the podcast apps will have us, the Google Podcasts and Stitcher and iHeartMedia. We're on everywhere. We have a very engaged audience. They're very passionate about movies. The Hollywood Interview interviews some of the greatest people in all of Hollywood history. And Alex Simon, our host, creates the most extraordinary questions that really surprises them. So
I have read several of his interviews, are amazing.
They're wonderful to do. And if you're a movie lover, this is a must listen to podcast. Yes, the Hollywood Interview.
Okay, well, thank you so much, and it has been wonderful to have you here in our interviews media soon at the moment.
Well, I'm a big fan of yours, and the Heart of Hollywood is going to be a big deal. So I'm so happy to have met you, and I'll be watching you and how you take over all of Hollywood.
Well, we'll try our best, trying to help other artists as well. And well, it has been a pleasure again, and I hope to see you soon again.
Thanks so much.